Firstly, the working style. So you have some people who work on very structured tasks, like field engineers. You know, they have work orders, they do something, they fill in a very small form, press send, and it's done. And then all the way through to people like us. We tend to be at the knowledge work end of the spectrum. So what we tend to do is very unstructured tasks, all sorts of different collaboration, communication, lots of different types of media and things like that. So we're much more uncontrolled. Then, of course, you've got mobility. A lot of corridor warriors in the business, you know, people who just walk around inside the organisation, but they're still mobile, they're not sitting at their desks anymore. All the way through campus mobility, national mobility, and many of us travel around internationally and still need to communicate when we're travelling in all sorts of corners of the globe. And then the final axis, autonomy. This is the nightmare for the CIO, isn't it? Autonomy is what happens when people start walking into your organisation with their latest iPhone, iPad, Android, or whatever it is, and say, and now connect this to the mobile email system. And you can't stop it. You know, it's just going to get worse. Don't delude yourself, you will never get control of that, because you won't. People are becoming more autonomous in choosing their technology. Knowledge workers like ourselves, we're becoming more mobile, we're doing even more unstructured communication and collaboration, and damn it, we want to do it on our own devices, not the one the CIO likes. That is going to be the future for mobile working on the next decade. Collaboration is four things, basically. So you have communities, communication, coordination, social interaction. So communication we all know about. It's clearly essential to any form of collaboration. You have to be able to talk to people, send people messages, share media, all of these sorts of things. And clearly mobile has a huge role to play in any form of communication. And then communities. You know, very few of us work alone. We're parts of communities that whenever you see knowledge, knowledge is always created and maintained by a community. So whenever you have a body of knowledge, by definition, you always have a community who owns and maintains that body of knowledge. So knowledge, the knowledge workers and community are indistinguishable concepts. They absolutely go together. And of course, we're seeing increasing use of mobile to support communities. About 20%, for example, of mobile subscribers in the UK or North America would actually use social networking on a mobile phone. So it's really getting into mobile space. And coordination. Coordination is planning, shared deliverables and so on. And we've been doing a lot of that on our mobile devices for a long while. So lots of us have got BlackBerries connected up to our calendars and things like that, for example. And then finally, a bit less well-defined is social interaction. Communities stay as communities because we're continually talking, we're continually pinging messages off each other, chatting. And many of those things don't have a structured, formal role to play, but we have to do it to remain a community. It's like the bouncing off each other, bouncing ideas and thoughts off each other, is the Brownian motion that keeps society alive. And so just being able to chat with people, tell them your status and things through technologies like microblogging, Twitter and all those sorts of things is an essential part to keeping the community coherent. What are you going to be collaborating on? Well, if you look at the trends here, smartphones in mature markets are really the dominant trend driving the marketplaces. In mature markets, and I know South Africa is a slightly strange market, but if you look at North America and Western Europe, probably by 2014, something of the order of 80% of the handsets in the installed base will be smartphones. So I'm guessing if we look at knowledge workers like yourselves, in South Africa, that will probably be the sort of install base, if not higher, you know, because everybody wants a smartphone. But clearly, emerging markets will be totally different. You know, emerging markets are not smartphone-based markets; they're feature phone-based or even low-end markets. So collaboration and mobile collaboration is going to be much less effective in those markets because you have to fall back on things like voice, for example. In platform terms, if you're delivering applications onto all these exciting smartphones, what we're seeing is a bit of a platform war going on at the moment. So today, globally, Symbian is still the #1 platform, but it's losing market share. It's losing market share because it's just not a very exciting platform anymore. You know, it's not one of those platforms where your kids go up and say, I want to be seen with a Symbian phone because it's so cool. You know, it's a bit like BlackBerry stuff like the same problem. And so what we're seeing is massive growth in Android shipments at the moment. iPhone is very strong because, of course, iPhone is the definitive cool device to have if you're a price-insensitive fashion victim, which is sort of the definition of an iPhone user. Sorry, I've now been hated by half the audience. Well, hey, there's another statistic statistic that was published in the UK recently, and I trust I won't offend anyone by saying this, but apparently surveys show that iPhone users have more sex than other brands. So console yourself, there are compensations in the price and sensitive fashion. Really, BlackBerry will lose share to more consumer-oriented platforms as well, particularly Android and iPhone. So if we look forward in Western Europe, and unfortunately this is very regional, but if we look forward in Western Europe 2 or 3 years, 2012, 2014, Symbian will still remain number one, but with substantially reduced market share. And it has very little traction in corporations even today. iPhone will be strong, Android will be number 2. RIM will have gone down to be number 4, I believe. If we look at North America, for those of you who are part of North American corporations, then Symbian has no traction whatsoever in North America, and so you'd be looking at Android to be the number 1 platform in North America, probably by 2012. So with iPhone number 2, RIM number 3. Someone I haven't talked about, intentionally, Microsoft, who sort of lost the plot, I think, in the mobile space. We don't expect that Windows Phone 7 will ever get Microsoft back into the top 3 or top 4 in shipment terms of smartphone platforms. It's just too little too late. It's a nice phone, the ones I've seen are a nice phone, very usable, but the problem is they're 2 or 3 years behind in the whole App Store and ecosystem and developer relations area, and I just don't think they're ever going to catch up, to be honest. Tablets, I think, for mobile collaboration will be relatively niche devices, okay? We expect that next year we will only ship probably 35 million tablets in the entire world, okay? Put this in context, there's about 300 million PCs, laptop PCs, mobile PCs a year shipped, 1.3, 1.5 billion mobile phones a year, depending on which year you look at. Tablets are niche devices. And I think part of the problem is they sit uneasily in the middle, okay? Because, you've still got to have a smartphone to make phone calls on. You've still got to have a laptop, because many of the things you do with a laptop, like big spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations and graphics and digital image editing and things, iPad just doesn't do as well. And those lower function tablets, they just don't do those things as well. And now you have to spend another $600 to $800 for a tablet as well as the laptop and mobile phone. That doesn't feel like a very cost-effective solution to me. And I think for many workers, because the tablet can't fully replace the laptop or the mobile phone, it won't make an amazingly cost-effective solution for a lot of knowledge workers at this point in time. The tablets are going to have to get smarter, and particularly the first generation iPad, which absolutely lacks some crucial features like a forward-facing camera, so you can't do video calls and things on it. That really is too crippled a device. And I think even the second generation one will inherit enough deficiencies that maybe it's not going to be the premier device. That doesn't mean there won't be some people in your organisation who could use it. For example, it makes quite a nice e-book reader and things like that. It's just that as you get people with more general tasks using a wider range of office facilities and a wider range of applications, then the tablets are less likely to be effective. Well, I'm not just being nasty to iPad here, the same is true of some of the Android tablets we'll be seeing over the next few weeks coming out at some of the consumer electronics shows, probably the MeeGo tablets I expect to see from people like Nokia, Intel later on this year and so on. Because some of these new devices are niches, things like e-book readers, for example, there's not a lot of them in the world. Don't entirely discount them, because there could be job roles in your organisation for whom an e-book reader or an iPad is absolutely the right device. And I'm seeing some people, finding some nice focused applications for whom an iPad, for which an iPad is the right thing to have. So the bottom line message here, I would say, is smartphones will dominate in terms of mobile collaboration and communication. And have a look at what you can achieve with wider ranges of smartphones coming in at lower and lower and lower price points, so you can afford to give them to more and more workers. Key technologies, you can see some of the technologies here on the radar screen, which I think will be important. Some of them are very obvious. Touch interfaces. Touch interfaces are just taking over the world in the mobile space. E-book readers, important for some of us. Mobile web, a key technology to deliver applications on a wide range of devices without being tied to particular binary formats. New networking technologies, 802.11ac. AC is the successor to 802.11n. So 802.11ac pushes Wi-Fi performance up into the gigabit range, okay? So, 802.11n means you don't need 100 megabit cables into your devices anymore. 802.11ac means you don't need gigabit cables into your devices anymore. That's still 2 or 3 years away from being something you can buy, but it's definitely going to be on the radar screen. Mobile augmented reality tools like Layer and Wikitude. I think starting to see some experiments in just a few of my corporate clients about using those sorts of tools, for example, to provide people with maps of where things are in large areas like campus areas or something like that. LTE, unfortunately you haven't had an LTE spectrum auction in South Africa yet. I would kick your regulator to get some LTE spectrum out there, because of course LTE pushes you up to getting reliable multiple tens of megabits, at least in urban areas, from the cellular networks. And this is the sort of thing you want from a wireless broadband capability. And of course LTE can go on up to, to 100 or 200 megabits at least. And so LTE is a technology that I think we really need, and it will beat WiMAX by 10 to 1 or more. So LTE will be the de facto standard future wireless broadband technology. And then WiGig is an interesting technology. This is a multi-gigabit in-room networking technology, so the sort of thing you use to connect a laptop up to a screen, for example. So that could be very useful for just collaboration around your organisation. So we're talking about mobile, we can't avoid talking about voice. Voice is still, of course, the killer application. The first is enterprise voice. What we're seeing on smartphones is enterprise softphone clients that hook your smartphone into your PBX, like Cisco, like Avaya, those sorts of IP PBXs. So you can use your smartphone as part of the enterprise PBX with all of those sorts of features. And those enterprise PBX vendors and enterprise communications vendors like Microsoft and so on are all pushing towards unified communications and things like that on smartphones. I think part of the interesting area that's going on here, part of the interesting development, is however the consumer-oriented voice tools, it seems to me, are evolving faster and into more useful tools than the enterprise voice tools. Lots of organisations now, Skype has become the de facto standard video conferencing tool for informal video conferencing, for example. You can't stop it, everyone just uses it. And one of the reasons they use it is it's less trouble than these formal tools and it doesn't cost you anything. And we're starting to see some admission of the fact that the consumer tools are actually in some ways better communication tools than the enterprise tools. And then of course, new exciting things to do with voice. We're seeing voice-controlled search. I've seen voice-controlled wikis, which is an interesting idea if you want to update your wiki from a mobile phone while driving. Probably not a major application, but hey, somebody somewhere wants to do it. Hands-free operation. Mobile email is a very mature technology now. So actually the majority of mobile email users in the world are consumers, not enterprise folks like we have here. But if you actually look, there's still huge potential here, because there's probably, if you count corridor warriors, 40% of your workforce who are mobile in some way. And so you've got the opportunity, I think, given the falling cost of things like smartphones, to push mobile email out to a lot more people in your organisation. And it's really just, I think, a cost issue here. The growth area is direct connect email, where you use things like ActiveSync, so the mobile phone talks directly into your Exchange server or your Notes server and just does email without any intervening infrastructure over the public internet. That's the simple solution, and I think that's the one that's going to dominate architecture. Mobile email isn't the only thing. We have social networking as well, something of the order of 500-600 million Facebook users, of whom around 100 million use Facebook on a mobile device. People usually come to it from web Facebook, so you start social networking on the web and then you take that habit with you onto the mobile devices. But that's clearly growing fast. Social networking in all its forms is going to be very important to all of us. And by 2012 there will probably be 800 million or more social networking users worldwide, of whom a fifth or a sixth will probably be using it on mobile. And actually, there's a lot of use of social networking in corporations, although I suspect much of it is actually informal. And the big trend here is if you like, democratization and commoditization. Mobile email, mobile social networking are consumer-first technologies now, even though they might have started in the enterprise. They're consumer-first technologies. And they'll be accessible to everyone. And the problem is the millennials coming into your organisation at the bottom will expect you to provide this. Social networking is something that people do, and they will not look kindly upon your organisation if you don't let them do it, because they'll think it's a natural part of life. Microblogging, things like Twitter, Yammer, again, starting to see a lot of interesting traction in organisations. But we're starting to see enterprise tools, equivalent tools like Yammer, like QuickCom, like Socialcast coming out as well. And things like social networking, particularly the sort of microblogging, is very effective for tasks like Does anybody out there know anything about X? And of course, if you've got any sort of microblogging system, it just makes sense to put it on the mobile device. Why would you have to wait till you get back to your desk? It's time sensitive. All this is about immediacy and action now. So you don't want to wait till you get back to your desk. Put it on the mobile device.